On both the federal and the state level, lawmakers are introducing a bill to reform policing. Joe Hankey is tracking the bill that could change police departments in your community.
In Washington, D.C. this morning, Democrats from both the House and Senate introduced the Justice and Policing Act. It's a direct response to protests here in Atlanta and nationwide calling for reforms to policing.
The power of this movement will help move Congress to act, to pass legislation that not only holds police accountable and increases transparency, but assists police departments to change the culture.
Congressional Black Caucus Chairwoman Karen Bass of California played a key role in crafting the act. The caucus reports 201 Democrats in Congress support the bill, including Georgia Representatives John Lewis, Sanford Bishop, Hank Johnson, Lucy McBath, and David Scott. The bill, in part, would ban chokeholds following the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis and ban no-knock warrants in drug cases, as used in the fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky in March. A national police misconduct registry would be created to stop, quote, problematic officers from leaving one department and joining another without accountability. Police departments would also be required to report use of force data to the federal government. State Representative Renita Shannon earlier this year introduced House Bill 636 at the state capitol as she works to create a Georgia use of force database.
There is no type of mandatory tracking of police force required. Most of it is voluntary, even if you look at the federal level.
Shannon says she also plans to soon introduce a bill aimed at ending citizens' arrests, which she said is being used as a defense in the Ahmaud Arbery case and the 2019 death of 62-year-old Kenneth Herring in Clayton County, with 21-year-old Hannah Payne charged with his murder. Shannon says she is hopeful her use of force bill will move forward during the current state legislative session, and she supports calls for a similar database by federal lawmakers.
I also hope that the bill would include exactly who force is being used on and which officers are using force most often, because I do know that what the FBI currently tracks doesn't have a lot of identifying information, so it's still hard to track which officers are repeatedly using force.
As protests continue, we have seen some calls to defund police departments, but what exactly does that mean? It depends on who you ask and where. Some activists want cities to slash the budgets of local police departments. The money would then be reallocated to the community and social services. However, others want funding to be eliminated completely, saying that communities of color often don't feel protected by police and rely more on community services to stay safe. Opponents find the idea radical, but some cities are starting to consider it. A majority of the Minneapolis council members say that they plan to disband the existing police department and replace it with a community-oriented public safety and outreach approach. So far, we have not heard any calls to defund any police departments in Metro Atlanta.